And so, in this critical moment, loyal YouTube viewers, I ask you, are you jelly? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video, and I want to go back in time a few weeks, maybe a few months at this point. Time is an illusion. Construct. And I played an Affinity style decklist, an 8-cast style decklist that featured Esperzoa. And to the surprise of everyone, including myself, Esperzoa was actually surprisingly good. Or perhaps more accurately, Simulacrum Synthesizer was better than expected, and Esperzoa helped to enable that. Simulacrum Synthesizer is a card that I've talked about as having an incredibly low floor. That is, when it's at its worst, this is 3 mana Scry 2. However, when it's at its best, this is an army in a can that keeps giving you more and more value over time, and it tends to be pretty close to insurmountable for fair decks, especially if you have them in multiples. Now, today's deck list is going to take some of the things we learned from that league, and then splash another color, kind of giving this deck a twist. So, Keeley submitted this list, and I've tuned it up a little bit. But the core idea is that we are playing this 8-cast Affinity style shell that has the ability to draw a lot of cards, and we are primarily hoping to crush our opponents with construct tokens either from Simulacrum Synthesizer or from Urza's Saga. But the spice comes in the form of Refurbished Familiar, which I believe is now taking the Pauper community by storm. It's a 2-1 flyer for theoretically 4 mana. That doesn't sound great. But how does a 2-1 flyer for 1 mana, that when it enters the battlefield, your opponent discards a card, or if they can't, you draw a card? That doesn't sound too bad. So, given that we are going to be in a format that has artifact lands and all sorts of fast artifact mana, Refurbished Familiar is something that can trigger Simulacrum Synthesizer while potentially trading in combat with a creature as well as giving us some value on its ETB trigger. And if we get to live the dream, we have Simulacrum Synthesizer, a Refurbished Familiar, and an Esperzoa. So at the beginning of our upkeep, we return Refurbished Familiar to our hand, we pay 1 black mana to make an Urza Saga Construct token, and then we either get to draw an additional card or our opponent discards a card. And with Esperzoa, we can do the same sort of thing with Thought Monitor as well if we want to dream a little bit bigger. Or even at the smaller end, we just bounce something like a Mox Opal, and we use that to continuously grow something like a Patchwork Automaton. Now, Keeley's initial build had 1 Vexing Bauble in the main deck. I'm going to play fucking 4 of these things. Well, Phil, don't you have some zero-cost stuff that you want to cast? Bet your ass I do, Timmy, but let's talk about that. So, with Vexing Bauble, you are the one in control of this card when you play it. And I think in terms of play patterns, on, your turn 1, you're usually going to dump all this sorts of stuff into play, and then play your Vexing Bauble afterwards. And I think the ability to have some extra game 1 interaction versus combo, since we're not a Force of Will deck the way this is currently built, I think that's important. But more importantly, we have a very, very critical card that we want to resolve every single time. This is truly a Simulacrum Synthesizer deck, and I need that card in play. There were like some Lorien revealed and some other stuff of that nature towards the top end of the curve, but I wanted more stuff at the low end of this curve. We're not playing Chalice of the Void since we are trying to splash black for Thoughtseize. So I want more 1-drops if we're not going to be playing Chalice, and I want more things that turn on Mox Opal early, and I think you either play Vexing Bauble in the main deck, or you play some of these other 1-drop artifacts that I currently have in the sideboard in the slots of Vexing Bauble. And it may be that I am kind of overrating the Bauble here, but we live in a world where, like, Grief, Daze, Force of Will, opposing artifact mana, Furies, these sorts of things are relatively popular, and I have been very impressed with Vexing Bauble as a game 1 lock piece / protection spell. So I think I conceptually like this. In terms of some fine tuning, there were originally another Otawara, a basic island in here. I turned those into underground seas. Just kind of mathematically, if we want a better chance at casting Thought Seas on turn 1, we need some more black sources. So we have Vault plus Underground Sea plus Mox Opal and I guess Lotus Petal as things that can cast it on turn 1. Yeah, it's possible this Otawara should even just be another black source. But I think I am going to leave the Otawara. Just having a game 1 out to some nonsense like an Ensnaring Bridge is probably pretty important. As far as the sideboard goes, I shifted around some of these things that started in the main deck. I added Hull Breacher to the sideboard. Just having something that's not an artifact in the deck for post-sideboard games is probably important for some of these control matchups. I added Hercule's Recall to have something for artifact matchups, and otherwise I don't think I touched the sideboard. I was relatively happy with the things that were here. I cut some blue elemental blast type cards because the red decks, you know, the Moon Stompy and such is a little bit in decline as of the time of recording. So yeah, with that being said, let's battle. Should you find that you need some magic cards, consider checking out toamagic.com. Tales of Adventure is an awesome site. I am very happy placing orders from them myself. I recently bought a whole bunch of commander cards from them and they got here in 3 or 4 days. So personal vouch for them. And you can use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order, and you always get free shipping too. What's not to like? Let's go jellyfish some people, huh? Make some nice Twitter screenshots. Sound good? Yeah, sounds good. All right, looking at this opening hand here, I can Thoughtcast relatively quickly, right? So turn 1, Lava Spur Boots. Turn 2, I control 3 artifacts. This costs 2 mana. Is this worth keeping? This doesn't really feel like it's worth keeping. It's close, I think. This is, I think, much better. I am thinking about the jellyfish. I think the jellyfish is the worst thing in the hand, and it pains me. I really want to live this dream. I think the conceptual way that I am winning this game, if I win, is with Patchwork Automaton. Just kind of running away with the game and getting lifelink. Ooh. Opponent says no. That makes my life much more awkward. Alright. Good game. Well played. So I imagine I won't... Oh, I did not immediately just lose Shadow Spear as well. I guess that's good, unless my opponent just casts Entomb and I fucking die. Alright, we do have Shadow Spear. Okay, it's not Entomb. Could be worse. There is a Surveil land. No random Atraxa just hitting the bin. It is a Nethergoyf. So we have some fair beatdown stuff going on here. There's currently 5 mana. I can cast it next turn, assuming I don't get wastelanded. A wasteland on this Ancient Tomb is currently really bad. Although I guess also wasteland on Vault of Whispers isn't great either. Basically, please don't wasteland me. It is a Tamiyo. Okay, so opponent is Hellbent. Tamiyo is going to help out with that. It is a lot of mana investment to draw those cards. Not the biggest fan of that. So this is 5, right? Yeah. I think I Underground Sea this rather than leave a floating mana afterwards. Oh. I do not want to be drawing extra Ancient Tombs at this point of the game. That is not what I'm here for. My opponent bricked on their draw, which is great, and they're probably not going to have more than 1 Surveil land. Although my opponent can start investigating. I'll block your 0/3. Oh. I'll take 3. My opponent cracks their clue. Alright, Urza Saga is perfectly fine. That gives me kind of a relevant big play. I will equip Thought Monitor, Ash in for 3 with lifelink, and just keep my life total high. I think my life total being high is more important than me trying to mess with the Tamiyo right now. I think the front side of Tamiyo is better than the back side of Tamiyo at this specific point. So I'll take 3 again. I'm at 10, and my opponent just concedes. Yep. That feels like an early concession, but I do think the scales were tipping heavily in my favor. But damn, my next couple of draws were real bad, opponent. So the big question here is, does my opponent have an unfair reanimation package? If my opponent is slotting Nether Goyf into their deck, my guess is that the answer is no, which makes Fairy slightly less desirable. I'm kind of looking at this stuff, with this stuff being the tier 2. Pithing Needle is probably reasonable for something like Psychic Frog. I don't think Thoughtseize is that good in this matchup. I want my top decks to be good for if I get griefed into Oblivion. I think the first 4 things that come in are these. I think I just need the removal, and I want at least the tutorable graveyard interaction, if not more than that. I'm now thinking about Hull Breacher, just as a surprise gotcha card. It's okay versus Tamiyo type stuff. Great against Brainstorm, great against Ponder, pretty good against Psychic Frog. This is a flyer that can block Tamiyos and is potentially part of my engine. But I think this is better. I think I am not going to Fairy or Pithing Needle because I'm already having trouble with cuts as is. Potentially I should think about shaving a Thought Monitor or something like that. My opponent just mulliganed. My opponent kept their 7. I believe that I am willing to keep this hand. No initial creature from my opponent. That's an interesting draw. Then I believe that I just shove Simulacrum Synthesizer, and if it doesn't work, I pivot into Urza's Saga as the backup plan. This is Dazeable. The upside of it resolving is absolutely insane. And if it sets my opponent back a land and is like setting me up for Urza Saga nonsense, I think I am ultimately good with making that trade. Wasteland's a little rough. That slows me down quite a bit. Bauble. Bauble's great. That's upping my artifact count. Seems like my opponent does not have any more counter spells. But the kind of hope is that my opponent plays something like, yuck. That's very bad. Okay, cool. Let's just play that this turn. Anyway, we would like my opponent to play like a Tamiyo or a Nethergoyf or something that I can just dismember. That way I get to use my mana, and then I follow up with Urza's Saga. In case I draw something that's castable, I'm going to dismember here. That may end up costing me 2 life that I didn't have to pay, because I could just use the Underground Sea mana pips. So we play Urza's Saga. This unfortunately costs 3, so we're not going to do that this turn. We'll just go ahead and pass. Ponder's fine. So I am looking for any land or any 0-cost artifact so that I can activate Urza's Saga. That is a reanimate on a Tamiyo. Perhaps not the ideal reanimate, but it's what my opponent is working with. I don't think I crack Vexing Bauble here. We hit another Vexing Bauble. So this is a little unfortunate for us. Once we play that, Metalcraft turns on, so this effectively netted us mana. There's an Ancient Tomb that I can't do a lot with right now. I'll pass the turn. I will get 1 Urza's Saga token out of this, which is perfectly fine. And then hopefully, like, I Hull Breacher, help out with this whole clue situation that's happening, and keep the Tamiyo from ever flipping. Okay, so that's a cool draw. Let's make my Construct token. I just want to grab Lotus Petal to be able to Hull Breacher immediately. I think I pass. I don't know, there's Hardcast Days to think about. You may Troll Cycle. Opponent investigates, this is fine. Ooh, it is a Meltdown. That is not great for me. That is also going to destroy their Clue token, in good news. I guess I am going to take cards out of these. Yeah. Don't have anything I can do with this Lotus Petal mana. Alright, so you got it. You got your kind of 3 for 1. Now my Hull Breacher is counterable, which is not the greatest. I think I am going to play this at sorcery speed. I think holding up the mana just gets really awkward. Alright, it's in play. I don't have nearly enough artifacts to start casting this stuff for free. There is a Psychic Frog. Now, the card draw portion of this is off, but my opponent can still just yeet 5 cards to it and create a creature that is much larger than what I am doing. So despite the fact that I have a very strong card in play, I'm not sure that it matters. Psychic Frog still just 2-turn clocks me. So I think I need to do something that represents a large amount of advantage over time. Like, oh gosh, yikes. I can make some boots, but I think I'm just going to die to Psychic Frog. Alright. No fun things for me. The attack does not make sense. Never mind. Everything's awful. So now my opponent's card draw is unlocked. Yeah, that meltdown was damning. So they get more clues. Psychic Frog draws a card. They've drawn a card for turn. They can crack a clue to flip this into the Planeswalker. And in this specific context, they can use that to get the meltdown back. And while normally I don't think Tamiyo is particularly good on the backside, in this specific context where there is a critical sideboard card that is very narrow and very strong, this is going to be hard to beat. Yeah, like I can play another Hull Breacher to prevent the card draw here. My opponent can just get back Fatal Push, dump a bunch of cards into Psychic Frog. I think I'm dead enough that I just want to move on to the next game. Do I want Pithing Needle or the backside of Tamiyo, given that it can specifically get back Meltdown, or is that going too deep? That might be going too deep. I would be cutting like 1 Refurbished Familiar for it, and I think I do need to keep a critical amount of things that actually trigger Simulacrum Synthesizer. Urza Saga, Lotus Petal, Mox Opal, no 1-cost artifact to play to follow this up. I don't like this hand. This has a disappearing land, no ability to cast my critical spell. I would rather go to 5 than keep this. Vault of Whispers, Vexing Bauble. This is going to be a keep. I don't think I'm interested in Lotus Petal here. I think I keep Dismember over Thought Monitor. So, bam. Oh, fuck. Order! Please counter this. Please counter this spell. I fucked up. Oh, thank God. Oh. Well, it makes for good content, if nothing else. Did not get Wastelanded. That's nice. My Mox Opal is not quite live yet. Daze is not live. So I go bam, bam, bam. Always yield to that. I don't think I dismember the Nethergoyf immediately. I think I am more scared of things like Psychic Frog that my opponent can play. Man! Just coming swinging with the hate. I have no mana. Can't even cast this. These cards are all broken. And I imagine I just lose to that. Opponent's Null Rods and Meltdowns served them well. And it's I think this is just a matter of time. That's a fetch to clear. Basic Swamp. Sure. That Nethergoyf already outscales Patchwork Automaton. I guess I will take 2 to play this card, continue to scale up my threat. So this Nethergoyf is going to outdamage me. My opponent can find Fatal Push type cards, and they have the mana to A4 ward easily. Yeah, that's the end. Yep. Sideboard cards confirmed good. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is an absolutely awesome place to keep all of your deck lists. I keep all of my personal deck lists there as well, in addition to all of the stuff that I do for the stream. And in the future, they're going to have a social media site on here too. So if you're worried about other certain websites dying, maybe join Moxfield, put your deck lists up there, and in the future, you'll be there for social media stuff too. Okay, this is maybe a keep. It does not have a way to win the game. It can deal 6 damage to myself very quickly, while putting a Vexing Bauble in play to make future stuff uncounterable, and Thought Seizing an opponent. I'm gonna keep this one on the draw where I just get an additional card. Ah, more polluted delta. Ooh, unfair polluted delta. I am going to get to Vexing Bauble. Oh, that's incredible. I'll probably do that turn 2, though. I want to go bam, bam. I'll play this one around Daze, I guess. Probably good against the Lotus Petal deck. We've got Surveil. Opponent likes their card. We're in play. I'll now play, I think, Boots. I think the haste for the Urza Saga construct tokens matter. Now, at this point, my Metalcraft is turned on, giving me the black 4 Thoughtseize. Okay, so we are playing against a, like, Coveted Jewel, Mystic Forge, One Ring style combo deck. I will take their least expensive card here. But I think my issue here is that my opponent probably put on top some sort of accelerant. Maybe not. I control 3 artifacts. I could just do this guy then, while still playing my Urza's Saga. And then hopefully next turn I just end up attacking in with a large construct token that potentially lifelinks. This is not a live card right now unless I sacrifice my Bauble. 3 mana, copy artifact. Sure. Are you just going to take your own Thought Monitor here to draw 2? Or do you want... No, Mox Opal probably doesn't make sense immediately. Okay, yes, so they do want their own Thought Monitor. I mean, that's a reasonable blocker for what we've got going on. So Coveted Jewel ends up happening next turn. Hopefully I can just kind of punch my opponent pretty hard, though. So without thinking about it too much, I always want to do this. I probably always want to equip. I control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 artifacts. So this costs 2 mana. I think that means I play Ancient Tomb. This is effectively free. Now I get the 1 mana Thought Monitor. Then we will Boots equip to the Construct token. Crash in for what I assume will be 2 points of damage. And be presenting lethal next turn if we don't run into something like the One Ring. I just don't know that my opponent can straight up take the 8 here. Yeah, there's the block. So my opponent's at 15. And this construct token is likely to do pretty close to that amount just all by itself. We have Vexing Bauble that shuts off some fast mana that my opponent can draw. Like this is the 6 for Coveted Jewel. So my opponent could play Coveted Jewel, hit a land drop, use Coveted Jewel plus land drop to play the One Ring, and Fog. It is another copy artifact. That gives my opponent a draw 2. Oh, it's more Ancient Tomb. Do we have a One Ring? Oh, we have a Paradox Engine. That's quite bad. Oh, but it's passing the turn then. I'm going to have 2 lethal-sized constructs. So this is not a problem in any capacity. I'll just pick up a Lotus Petal. So, play land drop. Move Lava Spur Boots here. Now both of these are just lethal attackers. I'm going to make them a tiny bit bigger, just in case that matters. Draw 2. I want to draw 2 again. Or I'll draw 2 again. I don't think I need to really equip Shadow Spear here. I will just continue to grow my stuff. And I've got 2 lethal threats swinging in. Alright, opponent is very dead. I think we got a little lucky there. But I believe that my opponent was just deterministically dead on board with the line that they took, so I don't know why they took that rather than risk a Coveted Jewel line that fogs and keeps them alive. Alright. Oracle's Recall, good. Hull Breacher, good. Haywire Might, good. Pithing Needle, good. Don't think I am interested in this sort of stuff. Vexing Bauble is kind of in this weird position where on the draw, it may not actually be doing enough. My opponent plays out their 0-cost fast mana, and then Vexing Bauble more gets in my way than it does theirs. I think this goes. I always want these. The Shadow Spear can sometimes matter. I think I'm not the most excited about that. And I maybe trim an Esperzoa from there. I could board in an Aether Spellbomb to have an out to, like, Urza Saga Construct tokens that's tutorable. But I think my out to their tokens is my own tokens. I think this is a time where not having Force of Will ends up being a really big deal. I mean, I've got a turn 1 Thoughtseize, followed up by a respectable turn 2 play. This is fine. My opponent's copy, artifact, and equivalents are better than normal because I am an artifact deck, and they can just, like, go and copy some stuff that looks like this. Cool. I believe for Metalcraft reasons, I am going to go ahead and play Vault of Whispers here. And let's see what you got going on. Chaos Defiler. Why did you keep this hand? Abrade is not castable. Chaos Defiler is not castable. Phyrexian Metamorph is quite weak. I mean, I'll take your Phyrexian Metamorph, I guess. Just in case you aren't familiar with Chaos Defiler, it is a relatively powerful card, especially if you can end up copying it. I'm going to just pass the turn here. Alright, this is just Ancient Tomb pass. So now I get to play out some artifact mana. So bam, bam. This costs 1 at this point. So let's go ahead and cast it. I'll make my opponent discard a card. They've got some uncastables in hand, so I imagine the Chaos Defiler is going straight to graveyard. They pitched the more castable Abrade. So now at this point, my Thoughtcast is 1 mana. Fantastic. I wanted to wait on this in case I specifically drew Urza's Saga, and I was rewarded. So I believe that it is worth using the Lotus Petal to Thoughtseize here. I will take the Paradox Engine. Again, Chaos Defiler is just uncastable at this time. Chaos Defiler, still uncastable, no black mana. All right. I think Underground Sea is probably just fine here. Hit for 2. Right-click, concede. Oh, okay. My opponent lucked into appropriate colors to cast Chaos Defiler. Or so they can, like, blow up my Mox Opal or my Refurbished Familiar. I guess I will float the mana with this. And it is non-land permanent. Alright, they took out the Refurbished Familiar. I will make my Construct token. So let's just continue to go bigger here. My things are going to outclass Chaos Defiler very, very quickly. Is this an artifact? It is an artifact. Is this non-creature? It is non-creature, unfortunately. I think I just want to hit with both of my creatures this turn. Let's just get boots, play seat. These are 6/6 base creatures. So I do this. Actually, do I want to attack this turn? As weird as that sounds. So my opponent blocks one of these, exiles the other, and then both of these can trade. I want to play one more artifact before I attack. That's very strange. So I messed up. I should have gotten Swiftfoot boots to equip to one of these to increase its toughness. Maybe I attack anyway, because leaving this in play for copy artifact is quite bad. I'm not going to. But I missed a lot of damage by not getting Swiftfoot boots. I should have mathed that out better. Once I went, oh, these have 6 toughness, I stopped thinking. It is a Phyrexian Metamorph, which is not great for me. My opponent has had runner, runner, runner off the top. Fantastic. I'm not interested in attacks. I will probably just kill my opponent in one combat step. Are you just going to die on the backswing? I'll take 10. You need to play another creature or you're dead. I'm at 6. Yep. So, activate. Move Lava Spur Boots to this one. 13. Show me your interaction spell. I think that was 2 games in a row where my opponent missed the fact that I had lethal on board and I just got to kill them when they could have chosen simply not to die. Okay, I think I am fine with keeping a Vexing Bauble opening hand that gets to play Thought Monitor relatively quickly. Like, I think that's fine. Like, I have 4 artifacts in play already. Thought Monitor is castable on turn 2. Okay, we are playing against a Cephalid Breakfast combo deck of some kind. Could die next turn. Let's play Urza's Saga. 1, 2, 3. I'll Thought Monitor. That is a counterable Mox Opal by my own Vexing Bauble. I think that's fine. In good news, if Vexing Bauble is in play, my opponent can't just, like, Dread Return for free. They would have to answer this Vexing Bauble first. So I think I am doing okay. I am much more scared of Nadu on the following turn. There's the fetch. It doesn't look like my opponent is just using it to clear immediately. Refurbished Familiar. So I've got 2 mana for Urza Saga, and then 1 other mana to do on something else if I don't want to spend the Lotus Petal. So I think I am fine casting this. We get a Force of Will that is currently a dead card. I'll swing in with Thought Monitor. I have Otawara available. That can bounce something out of play in response to the worst case scenarios. I moved Pithing Needle to the sideboard, which is sort of unfortunate for this specific matchup. That's not green mana. My opponent did not like the next land. Yeah, cantrips are great. Things that are not putting Nadu in play excite me. It's just another land. Hopefully my opponent is dead or very close to it. So we make a friend. The big friend. And I'll make another friend. Oh, I see. It is just purely a fetch. So Otawara costs 4 mana. I think I'm putting my opponent in a situation where they have to chump block by getting a Lava Spur Boots. Yeah, one of these has to be blocked or otherwise removed. I think then this becomes a land. Let's make my opponent discard. They junk a land. I will equip this construct token. That is not the proper timing for swords, because I'm still in my main phase and I can now just equip this somewhere else. And I do net damage by doing that, even though I drop an artifact. 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Opponent's at 1. Damn you, Vexing Bauble. So we'll see if I die to Nadu combo after putting my opponent to 1 on turn 4. There's Urza Saga. That is Cephalid Illusionist. That's not good enough, because Vexing Bauble will just counter Dread Return, so that's not actually a combo attempt. Opponent says, first time I'm doing this. Well, you're about to learn something, friend. I'm gonna jump ahead. Oh shit, my opponent just had the Thassa's Oracle in hand, so they don't have to Dread Return it. That's super unfortunate. My opponent wins this one at 1. Okay, so my opponent's build does not have Stoneforge Mystic. It has a small number of removal spells, some amount of Orum's Chant. There are the Force of Wills, so we are shutting those off with Vexing Baubles. Alright, got it. So Haywire Might in Spellbomb, in Lantern Pithing Needle, in Dismember, in this sort of stuff falls into a clear tier 2. So I guess I ask myself, like, what's bad? I think I can significantly go down on threats and just plan to win the game with, like, a set of Urza Saga tokens at some point, or Simulacrum Synthesizer tokens. So I think I do something like this, board in at least this much stuff, and then start thinking about this. I don't think Refurbished Familiar is particularly strong, but I do maybe need to keep a decent amount of these 8 cards to trigger this stuff. I kind of like this stuff. The issue is that, like we just saw, sometimes the Oracle is in hand, or sometimes they will now do combo, and this is not actually relevant. I am finding it hard to remove more cards from here without taking out things that are a part of the engine. All right, Seat, Lotus Petal, Mox. This is going to be a keep. Bam, 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 bam. That's a little awkward. If I leave my opponent with Cephalid, Illusionist, and Prismatic Ending, then they just Prismatic Ending my Vexing Bauble, which is kind of important right now. The Vexing Bauble is stopping the fastest possible Cephalid Illusionist combo lines. I think I'm going to defend my Vexing Bauble here, and I think I am going to just put the threat into play on turn 1. My opponent junks the Narcomoeba. And this is probably Ponder, looking for Greenland removal spell for Vexing Bauble, or, Shuko, Nomads, and Core, whatever. They shuffled, so that is at the very least good for me. That's great for me. That gives me a very swift clock to back up my initial, relatively weak disruption. Like, we have a 3/2 life-linking Trampler. Unfortunately, this is not a matchup where the life totals matter all that much. It's like, the states for both of us are dead or not dead. Oh, come on! What is every one of my permanents? Because it also hits enchantments. Let's draw a card. Yeah, I'm not gonna play that out with my opponent already having that stuff in hand. Okay. You're playing against a Yorion deck of some kind. So I have Ya into Vexing Bauble and Refurbished Familiar on turn 1. Potentially set that up with Esperzoa slightly thereafter. That seems fine. I look forward to getting scammed on turn 1. Oh wait, it's a Yorion deck. That's probably not happening. My opponent has played a Plains. It is not in play yet. Invisible Plains. Okay, there we go. We just had a strange lag burst. Mother of Runes is fine. Does Ancient Turn 2 make my first turn better? Like, I'm always playing these out. So I play Vault of Whispers. I use Vault to Refurbished Familiar. I probably don't need to Vexing Bauble immediately. It's just like Solitude. Yeah, I think I'll just save the life. So let's go Metalcraft on, I think, Thoughtseize first. There is a Solitude. My opponent has a Wasteland. I think I take Spirit of the Labyrinth. I will go ahead and Refurbished Familiar, make my opponent discard another card here. Probably a land. I have taken out a Ganjo. I don't think I need to Vexing Bauble immediately. And then we're going to try to set up Esperzoa, Refurbished Familiar. Ooh, opponent just going for the Stoneforge Mystic immediately. Getting Kaldra. Sure. The Refurbished Familiar stuff is very slow here. I'm thinking about whether or not I just want to play and cycle Vexing Bauble immediately. I don't think I do. I also don't think I'm going to put Vexing Bauble into play. Let's just do this. That Stoneforge Mystic is putting an exceptional amount of pressure on me in a way that I am not a fan of. I can also just get Wastelanded and Ghost Quartered in this same turn cycle here. Alright, opponent is going to stick on the Cauldron line. I am going to get Wastelanded, though. I took the basic island out of this deck. So I think I might need to attempt to race in this game. I'm just going to bounce Lotus Petal to my hand, which is part of the reason why I didn't just cycle Vexing Bauble immediately. I am going to cycle it now. Okay, that's fine, I guess. Targeting my Esperzoa, I'll just float a mana. Crack it immediately. A Thought Monitor. So This is probably worth 2 life, despite the fact that it may end up changing the clock. I have things like Spirit of the Labyrinth that I need to respect from the other side of the table. Sure. I'll go ahead and put the Shadow... Hello? I'll go ahead and put the Shadow Spear into play. I can't equip it, but the Shadow Spear does threaten to do some sort of neat things. Like, I don't know that it's going to matter, but I can make the Cauldron lose indestructible. More importantly, it's just like life on the backswing. So that's Yori into hand for my opponent. They're just going to push the extra point of damage. Every point of damage matters in just an onboard bodies versus lifelink race. Can't block. Lotus Petal, very obviously not what I am looking for. I'm not successfully racing anymore. I think I'm going to equip to Refurbished Familiar, just attack with that. Leave this back to theoretically block Stoneforge Mystic. Theoretically. I don't think it's worth it to move the equipment around. I think my artifact count matters too much for, like, stringing together Thought Monitors and friends. Yep. I'll take 6 back. I go to 7 and then 6. I'm not dead on board. That's real bad. Just going to confirm that I took the island out of the deck. So now my opponent knows that Ghost Quarter is also just strip mine. That's awful. Vexing Bauble sure doesn't do it. Is also flying first strike. At this point, I think we can throw in the towel. My opponent's hand wasn't even all that great. I'm just failing to draw Simulacrum Synthesizer. This is match 4. I do not believe I have drawn one a single time, and like this is what I need to bury the fair matchups. I probably want to board Vexing Bauble out here. Like, it does stuff versus Solitude, but this is not the right sort of matchup for that. Like, I'll play Dismembers and Pithing Needles and Haywire Mites and Spell Bombs over that sort of stuff, and then I cut one other card, maybe one Thoughtseize. It's an okay card. It's a little hard to cast if my opponent is obliterating my lands. Hey, this is pretty good, assuming I don't get Wastelanded. This is my only blue source in hand for this, which makes the first turn cycle sort of awkward. Like, I can take 2 extra damage to play Haywire Might, or have a 6 mana Dismember or 6 life Dismember available for Mother of Runes, which I imagine is a card that my opponent has boarded out. Because I have Urza Saga Ancient Tomb following this up, I think I am just going to go ahead and do this. And there is a Mother of Runes. Do I care? I plan on winning the game with colorless bodies. I don't think I care. Esperzoa for next turn is great. I'm thinking about time for Thoughtcast. I think I'm going to eat up too much of my mana with Esperzoa to want Thoughtcast immediately. I will offer this trade if my opponent wants to take it. Fantastic. That just keeps the Dismember live for other cards later. But like the White Orchid Phantom stuff is just going to eat me alive. I will not search because I don't have it. So I think I am just going to play Esperzoa next turn. I don't think I'm going to get Urza Saga started. I'm just going to eat the damage from this. I have other more important Dismember targets. Third land into Recruiter. You've got it. I'll let my opponent make that decision. See what they're getting. It is Lauren. That's rough. Lauren is going to blow this up. And then my Esperzoa is a lot of downside. I am already losing to like blink effects with Lauren. Lauren Caracas is like unbeatable. I think I just lose to this entire deck, if I'm being honest. I am going to take this out and just use my mana while I can. I think I need to play this land somewhat awkwardly. Like, Lauren just blows this up and then the Esperzoa bounces itself if I don't play Vault. I don't know. Maybe I just give up on the Esperzoa and I just like treat the Esperzoa as one construct token. So like I just use it to make a 3/3 and I just accept that and move on. Ah, damn it. Yeah. Oh, my opponent chose the Urza Saga. Yeah, so I'll bounce my Esperzoa itself. I'll put them in that same situation again, where I will just re-Esperzoa. My opponent will block and bounce with Lauren. Yep, yep, yep. Do your thing. Baracus to hand. Now I have a lot of onboard power. It's Lauren plus another thing that starts to get scary. So now they are taking out the Simulacrum Synthesizer. The Wasteland's very good. That's quite annoying. I don't have anything else to do with my mana, so I will just return the Esperzoa. This is just very not good. I think this feels like a very poor matchup. I think my opponent just has too many ways to blow up my stuff, and this is just not counting the, like, multiple Wrath of the Skies that I am expecting to see out of their sideboard. So now Lauren and something else might be able to reasonably happen. My Esperzoa is going. I'm not pressuring my opponent hard enough. And I'm getting a little love tap for one. Top decking Underground Seas is not what I want here. I can attack with 2 4/4s. It's just not good enough. This is only pushing 4 damage, and then I lose another construct. Need to be top decking the Thoughtcast style stuff. My mana was really tight for a long time, so I don't regret bottoming the one that I did. Ooh, so this is now Stoneforge Mystic for Kaldra and Lauren in the same turn cycle. That's really rough. Yup. I'm going to go ahead and concede here. This is pretty miserable. Okay. Turn 2. Urza Saga, Patchwork Automaton, Lotus Petal. Or honestly, maybe turn 3 Urza Saga for Simulacrum Synthesizer. I think the hand is a keep. It's just a little slower than I would like. But given how infrequently we have actually gotten this to work, I think this is fine. All right, cool. We did not get scammed on turn 1. That brings me joy. That also brings me joy. Okay. So we are going to play a nice Dazable Patchwork Automaton. Opponent can have it if they want. I have... Oh, hell yeah. I have much, much better cards coming. Is there any reason to play or not play Lotus Petal right now? I'll just play it. That's not a card worth a daze. Also, I don't think my opponent has daze if they just fired off Force immediately, you know? Opponent shuffled. That's great. Oh, they don't have more lands. That's a disaster for them. Now I don't even need to play out Urza Saga. I will just play Simulacrum Synthesizer into Simulacrum Synthesizer and just win the game. Yeah, that's fine. Opponent has Stifle. Good thing to know about. Opponent needs like land drop Psychic Frog or something like that to get a source of card advantage into play that's going to keep up with what I'm doing. They cannot keep just Force of Willing my resources. Oh, they are Esper. Yeah, I'll take 2. So, bam, bam. Simulacrum Synthesizer. There is not another Force of Will. Oh my god. Yes. Up. 1 mana. Thought Monitor. I will pay. Yeah. So my opponent is presumably on some Psychic Frog nonsense. I am going to assume that Grief Reanimate are there. If they are going into another color, I'm going to expect they are more controlling and less combo-y. So I think I want to gear up for a longer game. Probably don't want this stuff. I don't know that I want to mess around with my opponent's hand. I think that's going to give me these and these immediately, and I still think I want at least the Dismembers. Not even sure if Patchwork Automaton is good in this deck. I think its best job is serving as Force of Will / Daze Bait. I'm thinking about trimming Jellyfish, because I think I need the removal for opposing creatures. And I'm going to leave Pithing Needle in the side for now. And we can reevaluate depending on how many like Wasteland Psychic Frog things we see. This is perfectly fine. Is maybe not the most exciting thing in the world, but Vexing Bauble as a way to either bait out or fully stop counter spells is quite good. It also just builds my artifact count very quickly. I don't think I want to wait to play it around days or anything. We'll just jam now. Fuck yeah. For sure. Alright, there is Psychic Frog. Awkwardly, my Mox Opal is not mana this turn, so I can't accelerate into Simulacrum Synthesizer. I'll live. So I go Yah. For 1 black mana, I force my opponent to discard a card. They've discarded Prismatic Ending. I'm very happy to see that go, and then I can just Thoughtcast immediately. That was a pretty good turn, too. Like, the turn's better if I have a Mox Opal in play, but yeah, sure. Bowmasters is pretty good against my deck. I'll take some Psychic Frog damage. So, how do I want to play? I think I don't Simulacrum Synthesizer this turn. I think I just go bam, bam, bam. Do I scale up more immediately? Let's scale up more immediately and make Psychic Frog stuff more awkward. End of turn Brainstorm's fine. So I would like to have Patchwork Automaton outscale Psychic Frog, or alternatively have my opponent pour a bunch of resources into Psychic Frog, and then I Aether Spellbomb it away. Ah, fuck, that's real good. Swords to... Oh, okay, they're doing ward stuff rather than just obliterating my lands. I am ultimately happy with that result. I want this Simulacrum Synthesizer in play very desperately. All right. I lost the Underground Sea over something that contributes to my artifact count. That feels wrong to me. All right, so while I have access to 3 mana, let's resolve this critical spell. I'm bottoming one of these lands. Do I want the other one? Knowing that I am going to be wastelanded. Let's say yes. And then I'll pass the turn. I am taking 4-ish damage in combat. All right, it is just 4. And then I imagine I lose Urza's Saga. And we'll see if anything else follows up. Okay, it is a Murktide Regent. You've got it. Spellpierce is a card that exists in the format. I could play out Underground Sea first to play around that, but sometimes I want to play an Urza Saga that I draw. So actually, maybe I always just need this blue mana for Aether Spellbomb anyway. There is so much incoming damage. Then I can't play for Spellpierce anyway. Okay. Do this. Bowboy does Bowboy things. Alright. Take some extra damage. So do that. I can sacrifice Vexing Bauble to play Simulacrum Synthesizer. If I do that, I don't get to Spellbomb. I think Spellbombing to stop 5 damage is very important. That said, my opponent can just, like, pump cards into Psychic Frog and then replay Murktide Regent. And my situation is still just very, very bad. Yeah. How all in are we going here? Looks like pretty all in. So, oh, and another Bowmasters. So 6, 7, 10, 11, 12. I am dead. Good God. Let's get the Pithing Needle in there now that we have seen both Wasteland and Psychic Frog. Get rid of 1 Thought Monitor, just kind of trim that against Bowmasters. This is fine. It's not overly exciting, but it's fine. Perhaps most scared of Wasteland with a hand that looks like this one. If I get to just cast my spells or activate Urza's Saga, I have a very threatening hand. It kind of feels like I just clunk all over myself if I get wastelanded once or twice. I think Vault is my most wastelandable land. Underground Sea provides me both colors. Urza Saga provides me with too much value. Alright, fantastic. Extra Patchwork Automaton is interesting. Unsure if good, but is interesting. Consign to Memory. Alright. That is certainly a card. That is a Wasteland. Opponent is not firing it off immediately. So they're going to Wasteland this Urza Saga before it gets this ability. Blink, blink, blink. Okay. So you very, very much care about casting your Orcish Bowmaster then? I can play Patchwork and start scaling Patchwork I think I am more interested in putting Simulacrum Synthesizer into play. I think just doing that while I have the guaranteed mana to do so matters a lot. Boots can go to the bottom. I will take another Simulacrum Synthesizer. Yeah, I don't know. I think denying that Urza Saga ever producing mana matters a lot more than putting Orcish Bowmasters into play immediately. Could be wrong, but like from my perspective, this is one of the most critical cards in the matchup because this is the thing that just buries my opponent, and it's hard but not impossible to remove once it's in play. Oh, that's gross. That is quite frustrating. Now this is not castable. I'm not going to use mana on that. I'll just pass the turn. I want to leave Soul Guide Lantern in play for my artifact count. I don't think I want to crack that immediately looking for a land. 15. For sure. Now this is where we start seeing the like Psychic Frog, Murktide Regent type cards coming down. I, again, want to leave this in play for artifact count, so I'm not going to crack in response to the fetch land. That may or may not be representing Murktide Regent. Cool. I think I instantly lose to a Daze. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 artifacts. This costs 2. This is already castable. Costs me a little bit of life to play it. I would rather just find something like a Dismember to more permanently clear Murktide Regent. But I don't think this stuff is bad. I might transition into the beatdown role if my opponent doesn't, like, swords this creature. Sure. That's a shuffle. That's great for me. New land drop. Serenity type Haymakers are on the table now. That's rough. Okay. I feel like today was just a video of me getting beaten by narrow sideboard cards out of blue decks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thought Monitor. So we'll put this construct token into play, draw 2 cards. My opponent pings me for 2 directly. Okay, pings Thought Monitor for 2. That's fine. These things don't work. I crash in. My opponent can just jump block. And now it's just a question of, like, can they beat these 3 construct tokens? They get the first attack step, so as long as they can produce another body, they're good. I think you tap Tundra to cast that cantrip, because now my opponent can't play Psychic Frog as a blocker with their currently shown mana. They've got another Underground Sea anyway. They did shuffle off that draw. There's a Prismatic Ending. That probably wins the game for my opponent. There's the Psychic Frog. I take 5 in the air. I am dead on board to that. Yeah, I have the ground fully stabilized, but I am just dead to this Murktide Regent. That is quite frustrating. GG's. All right, so let's talk about the deck here. Generally speaking, I think that this was a well-constructed deck. However, I think the positioning of a deck that looks like this in the current metagame is just absolutely awful. More generally, 8-cast is 0.3% of the metagame. I don't mean 3%, I mean 0.3%. I mean a third of 1%. And that is a deck that has been very well positioned in the past year or two at times. And, you know, if right now the highly optimized, highly tuned artifact deck is putting up such low results, then I think expecting success with a brew version of the same thing is just not super realistic. Pretty much all of our opponents had Meltdown, Stony Silence, Null Rods, something of that general nature that if they played it, our deck kind of fell apart on the spot. So while I think this is relatively solid deck building, and I think the Refurbished Familiar idea is quite interesting, I just ultimately think that being on an artifact deck that looks like this one right now just feels very unwise. The white decks now have Wrath of the Skies as something that they can do to just wipe all the Urza Saga construct tokens for 2 mana at very little cost. If they have extra mana, they can take more collateral damage with it. I feel like in most of our rounds, I just didn't get stuff going. Like, I don't know that we ever made a large patchwork automaton that just ran over opponents. We very rarely got Simulacrum Synthesizer going, partially because I just didn't draw it until like round 4. And so, like, this game was, the games that I won were just basically on the back of Urza's Saga, maybe backed by Vexing Bauble. So I think this is, unfortunately, the sort of deck that you just shelve until August when we get a BNR update and some of the more powerful stuff leaves the format. I do think this deck is very bad against Grief, for what it's worth. Like, we do have Vexing Bauble to stop it, but if we get griefed and we lose the critical card that has made our hand keepable, when it's not just Urza Saga, we don't do much. Sideboard options felt okay. Maybe there is some finesse to be had with where some of these cards go. While a couple times in the league, the Vexing Bauble tension with Mox Opal and Lotus Petal was felt, I largely liked having access to these to shut off counterspells. So yeah, if you have any other thoughts, throw them down in the comments below. If you need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU to let them know that I sent you. And folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and good luck in your own jellyfish-related adventures if you're brave enough to try this one out after watching this league. See ya!